Hi there, welcome to my series on creating a Python project the easy way. In this first part, you're going to be learning how to get started with your Python project. By the end of the series, you're going to have a full-fledged project with documentation, tests, and have it even published on PyPi for people to pip install. All right, let's get to it. To build this project, we're going to be using Jupyter Notebooks. In order to be able to write full-fledged Python projects using Jupyter Notebooks, we're going to be using this tool from FastAI called NBDev. So if you're unfamiliar with NBDev, I would recommend looking down in the description box below to find some links and resources and stuff that I have for both how to use Jupyter Notebooks as well as a link to the NBDev website that has wonderful information on how to do this. The reason for using Jupyter Notebooks is that it allows for this idea of having literate programming, where you combine the rich text of descriptions such as images, formulas, and stuff directly inside of your coding environment, so you don't have to separate your documentation and your code. And this was something that was envisioned all the way back in 1983 by Donald Knuth, but fully realized, in my opinion, by the introduction of NBDev to allow you to use Jupyter Notebooks. So in order for us to never have to leave our browser, we're going to actually be using code spaces. If you're unfamiliar with code spaces, it's something offered by GitHub where you can actually set up a full-fledged IDE directly in your browser based off of your GitHub repository. So let's jump right into creating the repository. I'm going to be using this NBDev template that helps with getting rid of all the boilerplate stuff for our project. I'm going to name this project based off my name and then the actual project name because this is going to be what we can eventually have as the PyPi package. And so I want something that's going to be unique for me since this is going to be a tutorial. So this project is going to be a very small MVP project, and it's going to be about mages. So after you've put your name, the repository name, optional description, go ahead and create the repository. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up our code space. So I'll be right back once this is finished. It might take a little bit of time. If you don't have the access to that code spaces, then make sure to go over to the code spaces and request early access. All right, so now that the code space is launched, I'm going to go ahead and open up settings.ini and fill in the required information. So the things that are required are the library name. So here I'm calling it MB ncoop57-mages. I'm going to put the username, which is going to be coop57. A description, I'm just going to leave as the default. We'll come back to this later for how you can stylize your project and update its documentation by editing like the description and the keywords and stuff. For now, I'm just going to leave them as the defaults that they have here. I'm going to put name for the author as well as my email address. This information is required for the Python PyPi package when you go to upload it to the PyPi registry. So that's why it's required. We're going to put in copyright, myself, the branch that I'm on, so I'm on master, and all that is finished. So we can go ahead and close that and open up our notebook so that we can start writing our project. If this is the first time you've opened up the notebook, you'll probably get this little warning here. Go ahead and just say trust all notebooks. Go over to the remote tab and click that you want to always trust all notebooks and reopen that notebook up. So you'll notice here there's some special tags, special comments that are placed in the different cells. This is what NBDev uses in order to generate your Python project. So this first one, which has to be at the very top, is what the module that you're currently writing is going to be called. So here this is saying that the module in this notebook is going to be called core. And so all functions and stuff that I write is going to be put into the core module. It'll probably make a little bit more sense in just a second once we export our first function. The second one that you can put is this hide tag. This just means that it's not going to show up in your documentation, which we'll revisit later on during that tutorial. So let's go ahead and make a first function that we want to export to our Python project. So here I'm just going to make a function called hello world. That all it's going to do is print hello world. And I added this extra comment here that's the export command, which is telling NBDev that I want this cell to be exported to my Python module. With that ran, I can go ahead and now generate the module. So if I go to the command line interface at the bottom, I'll type NBDev build lib and go ahead and run that. And now you'll notice that we have an extra package, an extra folder here that has the name of our library. And if we expand that, we'll see it has a couple new files in here. The init one and the NBDev one you don't have to worry about, but now you'll see we have this core.py. If we go ahead and open that, we'll see that it contains the function that we wanted exported. And so that's what NBDev gives you the ability to. It gives you the ability to write all your functions and stuff or classes in here, add a couple, tags here and there for NBDev to be able to correctly parse them. And what it gives you is a converted version of your Jupyter Notebook into the proper Python project with all your modules and things like that you'll then upload to PyPi. What we're going to now do is just get the basic bare bones implementation of our Mages library. So I'm going to go ahead and copy some code that I've already written over and just talk a little bit through what it's doing. And so here we are going to have different types of abilities that our mages can have. So the two that we're going to have is a fire ability and a water ability. Each ability is going to have the amount of damage that it does, damage type, and we're going to have some battle sequences later on in which I'll show you in a moment, where we'll be generating like strings where one person's attacking another with a jet of fire shooting towards them, or ice cold water being flowing towards them, etc. Let's go ahead and make another piece of code that we're going to then have for our character. So our character is just going to be the base class of the different types of characters that we're going to have, which will be mages and demons. Demons will be things that us mages battle. And all this is going to do is just hold the name of the character, max health, current health, the type of ability that they have, their current level, and then also a helper string function that just prints out their status for us. If you don't want to create a new code by going over here, what you can do is go into command mode in Jupyter Notebook, which is the escape character, and then type D. And so that will generate via a key binding a new cell if you are new to Jupyter. So let's now generate our mage character. And let us go ahead and run these cells. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the abilities one. We'll see, Control Shift Enter, Shift Enter, and Shift Enter to run those cells. And now we can go ahead and create our mage to test to make sure that everything's working. So mage Nathan, we have 100 health and an ability that does 10 damage and is the type water. Let's go ahead and now print the mage, and let's see if that's working. All right, so we have the name of the mage, Nathan's current health, 100, max health, etc., etc. And so all this is doing is just adding an extra little attack function here, which I can show you what that does by making another cell. So I can say that mage attack and pass in the opponent that they're attacking, which I'll just say that I'm attacking myself. I'm going to run that. So all it does is take some health off of whoever it is that they're attacking and prints out a little message. So from Nathan's wand, ice cold water is flung towards Nathan. And if I were to go ahead and print out my health again, we'll see that some damage accrued since I'm taking whatever the target was and subtracting their current health. The other function here is just a level up function, so we'll have multiple levels in this little tutorial. And so that it just handles that by increasing the level, increasing their max health, resetting their current health from the battles that they have, and also increasing the ability's damage. So I'm going to go ahead and re-export this project because you'll notice that if you go back to this file, this is still having the old information of the hello world that we had. I'm going to go ahead and do NBDev build lib. Now, if I open this back up, we'll now see all of the cells here from our original Jupyter Notebook. So the abilities class, the characters class, and the mage class. But you'll notice all the other cells where we were printing out different values and testing our implementation aren't here. And so that's where Jupyter Notebooks really shine, is that we can, during our development and stuff, we can be writing these little tiny checks and stuff in different code cells and to test whether or not our implementation is working. And then once we're satisfied with it, we can just export it to our core library. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and delete a couple of these. And now I'm going to add our other character, which is a demon. And we can go ahead and test out our demon class. Let's name them Terry. We'll give Terry 100 health. And as you can see, we didn't actually add an ability because we'll just say that the default of a demon is to have the fire ability. So if we go ahead and run those two cells, we can see it seems to be working. And let's see if we can attack Terry. Let's see. So from Nathan's wand, ice cold water is flung towards Terry. Seems to be working, and Terry has less health. If we run it again, we'll see that our health, Terry's health went down even further. So let's go ahead and now export this library again. But instead of doing it from the command line, I'm going to show you one other way that you can do it from, which is directly from the notebook itself. You can put this line, and I generally put this at the end of my notebooks. And this will perform the same thing as if I were to run NBDev build lib from the command line, but it's just in the same place where you're writing code, so it might be more it might be more useful to you if you put it directly into the module itself. So if I go ahead and run this and go back to core, we'll now see that the daemon character is there, and this isn't being exported since we don't use that export tag. Okay, so, well, this isn't very useful if we had to write everything in one huge giant notebook. So let me show you how you can add in an additional notebook and have this where you can import from one notebook to another. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this notebook and generate a new one. And I'm going to rename this one. I'm just going to call it game because this is going to have the logic for the game mechanics where we're going to be encountering new demons, fighting the demons in combat, and it's going to have like a game loop as well. It's going to have the logic for the game loop. So I'm also going to increment this name. The reason for these numbers is just for pure aesthetics so that you have your notebooks in chronological order. You can name them and put whatever numbers you want here, or you don't have to have them. I do tend to keep the name here. So here for games, I would keep this the same as whatever the module that I call this, that I'm going to have NBDev call this notebook. So since this notebook is called game, I'm going to make sure that the module that that NBDev generates is also called game. So to do that, I just have to change this default exp. So in order to get access to our classes and stuff in this other notebook, we literally just have to import them. So I can do import the name of our library, so NBDev 57-images. And since we're actually going to be having a underscore here, just because that's how Python requires it, you're not able to actually have dashes in your import statement. So we're going to do import incoop57_mages.core. And now we'll have access, so I'll just do it as mages. And I can go ahead and run that, connect, and you'll see we don't have that library. So in order to make it so that we can import this, what we need to do is install our library. Luckily for us, NBDev has already taken care of setting up us to install the library locally using the setup.py. So all we have to do is do pip install -e period, and this will install the project for us. So if we now go back to here, I believe I need to restart the kernel. Come on. Let me go ahead and close that down, reopen it. So I think I made an error. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that real quick. Instead of making the library in here have the dash name, I have to put it with an underscore in order for NBDev to properly generate the folder structure. So I'm actually going to delete this this one that I made with the dash, and I'm going to go ahead and rebuild the library. So be careful when you are, if you're copying and pasting, make sure you can you hit allow here so that you can copy and paste into the IDE. But when you're naming your library, make sure not to have dashes in it. So I'm going to go ahead and rebuild this, and that should hopefully fix that issue. Awesome. So now I'm going to do pip install again. And let's see if we are good to go. Okay, it's working now. So we've now been able to install it as Mages. And so if I want to let's see, if I go to my core notebook, I can copy and paste us printing out our new Mages name. So let me go ahead and create a new cell, go ahead and paste that, and we'll call it Mages dot, and see if we now have access to that notebook. I have to also put Mages here. Okay, so we now have access to it. And just to make it easier, I'm going to change this to a from import. So from this import mage and ability, so I don't have to keep typing this here. So let me go ahead and rerun this, rerun that, and we now have access to all of the code in our core notebook. I'm going to go ahead and add one more, which is the daemon, and we're going to now write just a few more functions to make it easier for a user to use this project. So the first function is going to be an Init Player, and so it's going to ask the user what their speciality is. If they don't select it, it'll reprompt them again, and once they've selected their speciality, it will generate the mage for them. So we can go ahead and test this out. Run that cell, and then run this. All right, so let's say that we are water. It then prompts us for the name. So we're Nathan. And it prints out just like we were previously, as if we made it ourselves. Awesome. And go ahead and delete this. And also I'm just going to clean up these extra ones that were cloned over when I copied and pasted the old notebook. Except for this last one. All right. So the next one I'm going to do is the combat. So this code just defines the combat where we have 2 players, and each player takes turns attacking. So we'll have a new boss called Gary, and we'll have them start out with very little health for convenience for us to check that everything's working. I'll go ahead and run this, run the combat. Demon is not defined. To rerun this one, and run here. But as you can see, like when an error happens, I can quickly modify the state of the script of the Jupyter Notebook without having to like go back to the CLI, type in Python 3 space, the name of the Python file, and so it just makes it a lot easier to iterate when you, especially when you encounter errors and you're trying to debug. So I'm going to go ahead and attack. All right, so from Nathan's wand, ice cold water is flung towards Jerry. Then Jerry also attacked me, and so now we have the current status of both of us. So I've taken 10 damage. Jerry's also taken 10 damage. I'm going to go ahead and attack again. You're both hit. And one more time I will attack. And I have won. Awesome. So now, so what happens is whoever was the winner of this combat session is returned back. And so we're going to be using this to check which player which character won, whether or not it was the player or whether or not it was the boss. So now let's do the final thing, which is just putting this all into a loop for a person to play. So here, this game loop takes a player, the amount of rounds, and what it does is it goes through those many rounds, generating different bosses with different amount of health, and then we'll start the combat and determine who is the winner. If you lose, then the game's over. If you win, you level up and you'll go to the next boss. And if you made it through all the rounds, then your name shall go down in history as the greatest wizard of all time. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this out. We'll create a new player and we'll play through just one round of the game loop. Oh, whoops. Let me. Okay, so let me do fire, anything, and I forgot to run this cell, so that's why I got that error. Okay, so water, Ethan. All right, a demon named Gary appeared. He seemed to have a chip on their shoulder and want to fight you. And the combat has begun. Go. So let's attack. And let's attack. And let's attack. I didn't say this was the best game. And let's attack. And let's attack. All right, so we've won, and our name shall go down in history. All right, so now all we have to do is do the NBDev build lib again. And if we go to our library, we'll now see that we have game .py that has all of our code, so that we can also import this if we wanted to. One last thing before we go is we're going to just commit all the changes that we did. So if we git status, we're going to do git add a everything, git commit, and initial Alright, and we'll go ahead. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. Part 2 is going to be all about documentation. I know it sounds boring, but NBDev has some pretty cool tricks to make your documentation look awesome. If you like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you disliked it, give it a thumbs down. If you have any questions, make sure to leave a comment, and subscribe if you want more content like this.